Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and let's start with a roll call.
Okay, today is May 27th, 2026. The time is 4:32 p.m. and trustees in attendance are Carla Gurgiolo.
Here.
Josie Martinez is absent. Andrea Sanchez Muniz.
Here.
Marianne Valdez Hernandez.
Here.
Fernanda Cardenas is absent. Michelle Dalbis Robledo.
Present.
Jaspreet Kaur.
Present.
Bert Quintanilla. Here. Beth Graham.
Here.
Judy Cruz.
Here.
And Joanne Harris is absent. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Let us start first with the silent meditation and bring our focus to the work that we have ahead of us for today. Next, we'll move to approval of minutes, and the minutes are in the packet at your place, and they were also sent out ahead of time. I will entertain a motion for approval of the minutes from the April 22nd meeting.
Motion to approve. I'll second.
Thank you. We have a first from Michelle and a second from Andrea. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next, public comments, and it does not look like we have anyone signed up for public comments. We'll just confirm. No one here for public comments. All right, so we'll go into our action. Just a quick few notes. So the passcode for your iPads with the virtual materials on it is listed on this card. So just take a look for that card. It starts with the number 2. And then also a reminder that everyone's mics are on, so just be aware of that in the event of side conversation. Not that we'll be having side conversations, but just for sensitivity purposes, I just want everyone to be aware of that. And then finally, my actual report, I just want to start by giving Sukrit, you and your team, immense congratulations. I know that Scott, who is our secretary for today, is leading the communications and marketing team, but the amount of coverage that the library has gotten, both in person, online, on Instagram and on Facebook, and then in the New York Times article yesterday, it was covered by The Athletic. It was just fantastic. I mean, what a absolutely wonderful way to really connect with the city of San Antonio. You see the community coming together. I was talking to someone actually on Monday, and they asked me, they're from someone who is not from San Antonio, and they said, are you a Spurs fan? Because the Spurs are in the Western Conference. And I said, oh yes, they make you sign something when you move to San Antonio that says you're a Spurs fan. And she thought I was serious. She was like, really? And I said, oh yeah, absolutely. There's no football team. There's no baseball team. There's no Major League Baseball team. So there's not a lot of other sports that can divide our attention, right? So the way that Spurs fans have shown up, whether it's at the Lock at La Cantera or at the Frost Center, you can just see that it does not matter how many degrees you have, what kind of car you drive. All that matters is, are you wearing a retro Spurs shirt? Are you wearing a new, are you wearing a Duncan jersey, or are you wearing a, Wemby jersey? And I just think that's so beautiful. And the library and your team specifically have done such an incredible job of recognizing that moment and connecting with the people. And you've done it in so many different ways. You created the Libby online lists for those who are really want to get deeper into the archetype, of the books. And then you have the social media posts, and You had Kate, kind of explaining, like, here's the books that we've seen Wemby with, and then here's the ones that are inspired by his reading style and by the genre. So just the different angles. And then I saw yesterday the post about the sizes, the heights. And it's just wonderful. It's just such a great way to make the championship and the library interconnected. So I know it takes a whole entire team, and I don't even know everyone's names if I wanted to say them out there. So I'm going to trust Scott and Sukrit to take that message back. But just know that the board, and I've spoken to many board members about this, current board members and past board members, and we're just so incredibly proud of the way the library staff has shown up in this moment for the city, and it's been incredible. So thank you so much for that. Yes. Thank you, Mr. McCary, for reminding me that public praise is always a good thing. And so I'm going to leave it at that for my update. I will turn it over to trustees now, and I'm going to start to my left with Miss Marianne.
Okay, everyone, get ready, because May was crazy month. A lot of stuff going on. On May 2nd, the Mission Library turned 15. They had a quinceañera, a big anniversary over there. It was wonderful. And they partnered with Somos Cultura y Más. So they brought in a lot of kids interactivity. There was music. What a partnership. What a way to get the community involved, which is one of our biggest library plan thing. And I just thought they did all that. So also on May 2nd, they had the film screening of The Librarians, and the library partnered to help with promotion with Esperanza Peace and Justice Center, and that was at night, and that was an incredible movie. That was also on May 2nd at night. And also on May 3rd, Pegasus, I saw Andrea there, and it was the most incredible. I had never been, and to see the children read their poems, it was just, it was a very nice event. And then on Cinco de Mayo, the Latino Collection partnered with the Mexican American Civil Rights Institute and did a Cinco de Mayo movie at Bazan Library. And the name of the movie is, I have to look it up here, because, okay. It's General Ignacio Zaragoza, his birthplace, life, and El Cinco de Mayo. So the professor that presented it, his name is Dr. Thomas H. Pennick. And it was an incredible presentation. That was Cinco de Mayo. And then on Saturday, May the 9th, the Latino Collection tabled and partnered with Paseo del West Side, which is El Rinconcito, part of Esperanza Peace and Justice on the West Side. That was a day thing, and they tabled the whole day. That was really good to partner with other people in the community. The community came, a lot of people at their table, so I'm sure there was a lot of activity that day. And then one more, Paseo del West Side, hold on. I think that's it. I know there was another. I think that's it. That's enough. So I had a fun time in May, and the library was well represented, partnering with almost everyone in the community, and I was really proud to be part of the library.
Thank you.
On May 1st, I attended a reading and Q&A at Nowhere Bookshop, which partners with the San Antonio Book Festival every year to sell the author's books for their owner's new book, Jenny Lawson, How to Be Okay When Nothing Is Okay. It was a really great community event. Oddly enough, mostly women. But it was a really great community event, and I enjoyed being there. I also attended the Young Pegasus Poetry Celebration, and again, I want to say, I say this every year, and I'm going to keep saying it, if you ever want to feel better about the future of the world, go to the Young Pegasus event, because the work that the kids and teens do is absolutely inspiring. And the community involvement with the judges, who are all authors and teachers, encouraging these young authors in their work is inspiring. And to see families, extended is limiting it. There's grandparents, there's aunts and uncles, there's cousins. It's just a wonderful, wonderful event. I cannot recommend it highly enough. And as usual, we need to thank the staff for the work they do. It's more than just the awards ceremony. It's promoting promoting entries when they start collecting the poems. It's organizing and overseeing the judging, designing the book, laying it out, getting it printed, and then staging the event. So the whole staff, it's not just any one department. I would like to thank them. And then I attended the Friends of the Library board meeting. That was my first opportunity to be the liaison for this board at Forest Hills. And it was a lively meeting. Liz encourages participation and sharing of opinions. And if y'all have a chance to go to any of those, they are definitely open to the public. I would encourage you to attend one or two of those meetings as well.
Thank you.
I always say May is like May-cember because it's the end of the school year for my kids, so it's very active, and I don't get to go to some of these events because it's just so busy during May. But having said that, since school is officially out, we had visited Cody to start looking for our summer reads, and thanks to SAPL and Wemby, my son has committed to read some of those books, which is really good. I know.
Great.
Him and a neighbor have decided they're going to read 20 books. Let's see how that goes. But I'm excited for the summer. Excited, I guess June 3rd is the kickoff. So looking forward to that. And then other than that, just the bond meetings that we're kicking off. And that's about it.
Same as Judy, May is the end of the school year. Tomorrow is his last day of school. But I did attend committee meetings and I voted at Mission Branch Library. Yeah. Very good. Excellent.
So same, it's end of school year. However, I did attend the Young Pegasus Awards, and as much as I want to brag on every child who was there, I really want to give a shout out to Ebony Ortiz, because not only was I there to represent as a library board trustee, Ebony attends the middle school that I work at. So to be able to see her, she's a beautiful 8th grader. She shared her entire Google Doc with me of all her poems. She actually had 2 that made it into the Young Pegasus. And to get to see her, I see her every day, and she's so sweet and so helpful. But then to see her get up and actually read her poem, it was very touching, and it came from inside, and you could tell. So it made me really excited also because, as far as I know, we have not had anybody from our district ever, at least in the past 10 years, be nominated, picked, submitted, any of that. So it was a big celebration. And then I also got to see her shelve a copy of it into our library at school. So she was very excited about that, and it made me really happy and warm my heart because, 1, serving on the board here, and then 2, also working with kids every day. So really excited. Thank you, Young Pegasus.
That's really nice. For me, I went to several of the Friends meetings for my libraries. Maury Maverick is going to be having their book sale, so we had to organize everything. Their book sale is this weekend, so anybody wanting to go, please do so. Forest Hills will be having theirs on June 14th. Make sure to put that on your calendars. These are inexpensive books, and they are well curated and cared for. I also attended the ad hoc committee meeting and the bond committee meetings. And it has been a very, very full and busy month, so between elections and everything else, so yeah.
Thank you. So yes, May was a very, very busy month. And I did attend committee meetings, but I also want to give a shout out to the library staff. I do see you all in the community. I see you all at resource events. I see you all during your outreach. And kudos to you, because everywhere I go, you all are there. Sometimes I feel like y'all are stalking me. But that's what the community needs, right? I'm so thankful for the library staff that the community is out there to give out that information, to make sure that those kids know that the summer pretty in the library is there. So shout out to y'all. That was it.
Hi, Burke Quintanilla with District 9. I visited all three of my libraries. Everything seems to be going very well. Engaged some folks who were willing to talk, and they were very pleased with the library and their repeat customers. So things are going well. I understand that Brook Hollow's kids section is closed temporarily, and so that's good that there'll be repairs conducted. I have, since the last meeting, joined the Brook Hollow Walker Ranch Book Club. And this has been an extraordinary experience because they're an enthusiastic bunch, that crowd. It's about 30 of them.
You'll have to share your book selections later.
You know, boy, we just got done reading The Wager. So it's about mutinies on a British ship right down my alley. So it's very good to engage with them and then also to receive the feedback. And they are very pleased with Brook Hollow and everything that the San Antonio Public Library system is doing for them. I had the opportunity to visit the Apache Junction, Arizona Public Library, just to do a sort of a comparison. And I tell you, we're pretty hard-hitting in SAPL. We are doing things right, and they are doing things right as well on a limited budget. So I bring that up in budget season with they work extra hard for their people, and I think we work extra hard for our people, and I certainly hope that the budget is good to us in the future, and that we continue to serve the community with ample resources. This leads me to a study that I have stumbled on about AI, artificial intelligence driven and written books. Seems to be the way the industry is going, and so I'm going to keep an eye and ear out to see how that may eventually affect libraries throughout the United States, and the pros and the cons about AI-generated books and the market-driven desire of the industry to go that direction. I happened to visit, because of the opportunity presented itself, the Cortez Library on Saturday the 16th of May for their soft opening. I don't know what they're doing at Cortez, but they are quite motivated huyas down there. And so I walked in when the doors opened, and what a sparkling place. I think phase 2 is going to be tarmacking the parking lots and some other things they were explaining. But they certainly were glad they were back in Battery. And what a place. It's all, I'm not sure about the colors. It's not me, but it's a very nice library. And then the last thing I attended and listened to online, the budget session with the city. And their discussions, open discussions about the pending hard decisions that have to be made. And so I think this nucleus group of library lovers and bibliophiles, we've got our work cut out for us to ensure that our stake is in the ground and our territory is mapped out. That's it.
Thank you for that. Thank you all for all the incredible work you're doing, both inside and outside the library, supporting the community. Next, we'll go to the San Antonio Public Library Director's Report.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hey, I'm so inspired by all of you to hear your comments about attending all of our library's events. And of course, kudos to our great staff for doing such an amazing job. So we are in full go Spurs go mode, and this is my team now. I attended a couple of the games in our neighborhood sports bar with a couple of my neighbors. So one of those games we won, so yay. And as many of you noticed and many of you mentioned, our locations are really decorating with lots and lots of Spurs gears. On the playoff games, our staff is showing up in Spurs gears, so that is very inspiring to see. And of course, I'm not going to go into detail, but I think I should mention this display, which was covered by New York Times. It has been seen over 400,000 times on social media. So these are the facts. This is what tells us people support our library, and of course people support our Spurs team. And last week, the Read Like Wemby book list was also mentioned on NPR Mornings show. Activities which will be happening across the city, across our locations. So if you can make it, we would love for you to join us. I know the Young Pegasus event, that was my second event. So inspiring, so amazing to see poems, see these kids, young and teenagers, and recite their poems. It is just so inspiring. We had this year about 900 submissions. So I was not even planning on mentioning that, but I believe, Marianne, when you mentioned that, how many submissions we get, and Beth, you mentioned that similar thing. So it was amazing, 900 submissions across the city for a program like Young Pegasus. So inspiring.
And that venue is beautiful.
The venue is beautiful, yeah. And then on May 8th, all of our library locations opened at 2 o'clock because we had our staff in-service day. And again, that was great for our professional development, great for team building. And I opened the event by brief remarks to our staff, but then all our branch staffs, they had their own team, their own mode, own goals for professional development. So thank you all for supporting us in doing that. Last Friday, our Assistant Director, Kathy Donlin, and I attended the City Council goal-setting session, which was on May 21st. And today, Freddie Martinez, Intern Budget Director, will share with the board information about fiscal year 2027 budget development, including results of the statistically valid survey and city's financial forecast. And thank you to David McCary for being here, our Assistant City Manager, and for your continued support to our library. That concludes my report. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, before we move on to the budget report for April, I am going to be making a slight schedule adjustment. So item number 18, which is to receive an update on the fiscal year 2027 budget development process. We're going to move this item up due to a scheduling requirement, and then we'll continue with the remaining agenda items. So we'll go back to number 5 after this. And Sukrit, I think you're going to do a quick intro.
Yeah, and Freddie Martinez, thank you so much, Interim Budget Director for City of San Antonio, for being here and giving the board report on 2027 board development. And also, we also wanted to thank the Budget Office for providing us, coming here and providing us with this report. And we know how busy you all are and how busy this session is, so we are grateful. So thank you.
So while they're getting this set, for those of you that are going to reference on the iPad, maybe if that screen is not convenient, you'll just have to go down in the presentation because this is number 18.
Should I give everybody a moment to find it?
No, I think you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go ahead and get started. Thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thanks for having me. A lot of great things going on at the library I'm hearing, and also I'll just put a shout out to my libraries. So I live in District 3, so I would frequent Mission Branch, but as a kid, I'd spend a lot of time in Pan American, so I'm glad they're still around and still thriving. So, so with that, as I was introduced, Alfredo Martinez, I go by Freddie. I'm the Interim Budget Director for the City of San Antonio. And today I'll cover a couple presentations. I kind of mashed them into one. We had our goals, our 5-year financial forecasts presented to City Council on May the 6th. And then last Friday, we had our FY27 goal setting session. So I've taken pieces of those presentations to combine into this one. So we'll talk a little bit about, give you an update of where we're at with FY26. And as I mentioned, an update on the 5-year financial forecast for the general fund. A couple slides on comprehensive budget reviews, so I'm sure you're interested in because the library is participating in those this year. And then some of the next steps in the budget process. So this first slide here just talks a little bit about kind of where we're at as a city in terms of our revenues and some of our metrics and activity for FY26. So you'll see on this slide that most of our major revenue sources, they are growing, but they're growing at a slower pace than we had anticipated during the 26 budget development. A couple of examples of that is our sales tax. Our sales tax, they're still growing, but they're not growing at the rate that we anticipated to grow. And you'll see in a slide here in a bit how we've projected those to be a little bit under the adopted budget. A common theme in the city for the first 6 months is that a lot of the tourist type of activities, your airport, your hotel occupancy taxes, river barges, those revenues are down. For example, at the airport, for a variety of reasons, we're down 4.5% compared to last year through March, and about 7.7% compared to the budget. A lot of factors there with the economy. There was government shutdowns in the first quarter, and same thing, those affect the hotel occupancy taxes. And then we're also, one other thing is that in our development service department, we're also seeing permitting activity slowing down, it's declining. So I don't have anything here on DSA, but those are expected to kind of stabilize and then recover as we go into the future. This slide is just a reminder of what our general fund looks like. So, the overall budget looks like 4.06 billion. The biggest piece is the general fund, which is most of what the library's fundings come from. But as you can see, the general fund supports most basic city services such as police, fire, public works, parks, and the library. Our next largest one would be restricted funds. So these are where the revenues are dedicated for specific purposes. So for examples of this would be our airport fund, our development services fund, hotel occupancy tax, solid waste, and our grants. So we couldn't, for example, we can't take revenue generated at the airport and use it to fix a pothole in Vance Jackson. Those revenues from the airport have to stay and support the operations, maintenance, and the capital program of the airport. Same thing with solid waste. So you pay a fee if you have a residence. You pay a fee for a small, medium, or large cart. So all those revenues that are generated through the solid waste, through those fees, stay with solid waste to provide for the operations of that fund. And then finally, 1.16 billion is our capital program. And the two major drivers in the capital program are going to be projects that were approved by the voters in our 2022 bond, and also airport projects. So in the 2022 bond, there's facilities, there's technology projects, there's all kind of things that are in there. Streets and sidewalks are examples of that. And then at the airport, if you've been at the airport lately, you can see that they're building a huge Terminal C, they're doing a terminal expansion. So those are funded through capital funds, as you see on this pie. So next is an update.
Do you mind if we
yeah.
pause to ask
Sure.
questions, or should we wait till the end?
I should have mentioned that at the beginning.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, great. Yeah, on that previous slide, could you tell us out of that 1.69 billion, what percentage is the library?
I'd have to do the math in my head, but it's 55.8 million is the adopted budget for the library. Maybe Kathy can help me with it quick. Or
58.
I'll get the accountants in the room to help me with that. 55.8 million.
million.
So
I'm just going to write that down. 58.8 million out of the 1.69 billion.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, I would just be curious what percentage that comes out to be. Maybe we can give Kathy a second to.
And out of all of them, who would you say takes the bigger percentage?
So the biggest percentage is going to be our public safety portion, and that's going to be comprised of our police, fire, and parks police. That's about 63.9% of our budget. On this adopted out of the 1.69 million, 632 million is police, about 428 million is fire, and then another 20.4, I think, is parks police. So those are the big drivers. And then right after that would be public works. They're at about 115, 116 million. Parks and rec, which is about 70. And I think after that is the library. I could be mistaken. There might be somebody I'm forgetting. But
So we're the most economical.
Well, it sounds
Yeah.
like Gabby might have the percentage too. 3.3% of that 42%. Okay, thank you.
Is there a slide in the deck where you are going to compare the general fund with the projected for police, fire, and other things broken down in the survey that was given?
Not by the survey. I don't have that here, but I do. There is a slide that talks about how the budget has increased and how that potential property tax increase would help pay for collective bargaining agreements with police and fire and some of their other required mandated expenses.
Yeah, because as I remember in that B session on Friday the 22nd, that the library wasn't in the top 5 of
No.
the survey.
No, and one way to think about that is that residents are very satisfied with the services that the library that they're getting from the library, so then they're not inclined to say that we need more money to the library.
Well, it's a measure of how dissatisfied they are, right, with the service.
I think that's fair
because they're asking for improvements in those services.
So the top 5 were affordable housing,
ACS.
infrastructure, ACS, public safety, and forgetting the top one, I think. Homeless services.
Thank you.
Yeah, just feel free to stop me if you have a question. So this slide just talks about a little bit where we're at through March. So revenues for March were about 21.5 million above budget for the first 6 months, and we're projecting those to be about 50.9 million above budget, or 3.1% by year end. Property tax, which is our second largest revenue source in the general fund, about 473 million would be the projection, and that's about $1 million above the budget. Our CPS energy revenues, this is what's driving that 50.9 million, or that 3.1%. So we're projected to be about 54.5 million above the budget, and this is primarily due to off-system sales. We don't want to go too far down that. Maybe you can ask me a question about it, but basically, off-system sales is the capacity that CPS has to sell energy outside the market. So those revenues that are derived to the city, those are generated from off-system sales, or our residents are not paying for that portion of those CPS revenues. Sales tax, as I mentioned before, it is growing, but at a slower pace. So through March, it's about $2.6 million below the budget. And then other revenues were about $2 million below the budget. Overall, general fund department expenditures are projected to end the year slightly below budget. I believe that their library was pretty much right in line with their budget. There was not very much of a variance there.
Excuse me.
Yes,
Could you
ma'am.
give us an example of what's included in other revenues?
So other revenues are going to be things such as our payment from San Antonio Water System, which is 4% of their general revenues. There's interest. There's user fees. Like I mentioned earlier, the river barge fees that we get from that contractor in there. There's towing and alarm and impound fees from police. There are EMS transport fees is another big one from fire. So, there's a fee if you get picked up by a San Antonio EMS vehicle and transported to the hospital. There's a fee which most of it is paid by insurance, not really the residents that pay for that. So those are some of the bigger ones. But if I showed you that Excel spreadsheet, there's hundreds or maybe even thousands of lines that make that up.
And does the city receive any incoming revenue from gas sales? Is it just sales tax, or is there any other special tax or additional fees?
When you say gas, are you talking about like gas and electric?
Petroleum, yeah, like gasoline.
Oh, gasoline. So they would just be whatever sales taxes are
Just the sales
are
taxes.
imposed on that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So as I mentioned on the previous slide, this kind of breaks it out. Property tax, sales taxes. Through 6 months, property taxes were in line. Sales taxes were a bit below. CPS revenues were making the majority of our increase, and then other revenues are pretty much in line with budget. And you see the projections there, which I mentioned on the previous slide. So overall, when you compare the budget to the current estimate, or what we call a 6+6 estimate, we're projected to have a better ending balance of about $62.3 million, and that's going to be from additional revenues, as I mentioned, mainly from the CPS energy revenues, some slight savings in departments. And we also had a little bit of a better beginning balance, which means in FY25, our revenues were a bit higher, and then we had some additional savings from our operating department. So that equated to about 8.9 million, the 50.9 for revenues, and then 2.5 million in savings for expenditures. So 62.3 overall. We're currently working on new projections, and when we have the trial budget on June 17th, these numbers may change slightly, but we'll show those at that time. The next part of the presentation is just a little bit about the 5-year financial forecast. The forecast is not a budget. we do the forecast. It's for the main fund there, as you can imagine, is a general fund. But we also did forecasts for the hotel occupancy tax fund, the development services fund, and the solid waste fund. It sets a framework for the upcoming discussions, which we've already had some at the goal setting last Friday, but we'll continue to have another one at the trial budget and going into the proposed and all the work sessions and community town halls that follow that. But overall, you'll see here in these preceding slides that our forecast is not structurally balanced and has deficits between FY28 and FY31. And the main reason for that is our revenue growth is not keeping up with our projected expenses. And a big part of that, and there's a slide here on property tax, but property tax revenues have declined. There's been some newly enacted legislation from the last session that has impacted that. But the main thing is that the valuation of property is declining. I have a slide on that here in a second. So we'll be working with the council and with the departments we have to have a 2-year balanced budget. So we're working on balancing FY28. FY27 right now, there's no issue. We have that. I just showed you the 62.3 million extra. That's going to be reserved to help with our future issues or budget challenges. So we'll continue to focus on that. So general fund operating revenues. So you can see here how the property tax. These are kind of our big three plus the other. How we're going from the FY26 estimate to the FY27 projection. As I mentioned, we're expecting about a 1.7% decline in property tax revenue, or 8.2 million. Sales tax, we're forecasting conservative, modest growth at about 2%, which is on par with what we've seen growing the past 2 or 3 fiscal years. Our CPS revenue, you see that there's a decline because CPS revenue is very volatile, and like I mentioned, it depends a lot on those off-system sales. It depends on the weather. It depends on natural gas prices and other factors. So the FY26 estimate, we're kind of banking some of those off-system sales that we received in the first 6 months, but we're not forecasting to be at that level again. So you do see about a 2% drop there. And then other revenues are going to be a slight increase of about $1 million. But overall, 0.6% lower on revenues compared to the FY25 adopted budget. And you can see that pie chart there on the right, how our biggest one is the CPS payment at 32%, followed by property tax and then sales tax. Just maybe 3-4 years ago, property tax was the largest revenue generator for the city, but now that's been replaced by CPS.
And another question about this, you mentioned that other includes SAWS.
Mm-hmm.
And SAWS recently, the SAWS board recently approved a price increase. Is that a rate increase? Is that factored into this out-year budget?
We don't, on this slide, as well as the forecast presentation you see, we don't assume any increases to SAWS rates and for that matter, CPS energy rates. So if the council chooses to approve their rate increase request, depending on when that happens, I know there's some discussions. I think there's a B session next week and then an A session in June. If we get those numbers in time for the trial budget, we'll incorporate those figures into that. If not, they'll be baked into the proposed budget that we'll present to council in August.
Okay, so for the out years, it would be done in the summer before that year, essentially. Is what you're
Right.
saying. Okay.
So we would recalibrate those numbers depending on what the council decides to do. So as of today, the numbers you see here assume no rate increases with either SAWS or CPS energy.
Thank you.
On the footnote on, I seem to be fixated on this, on other revenues, shows that there is going to be $3.1 million in new revenues as part of fiscal 2027. Is that new sources or an increase in percentages, or where is that increase
Those
coming
are
from?
adjustments to fees. So the biggest drivers, I mentioned that EMS transport fee. So that 3.1 is a placeholder. It hasn't been adopted by council yet. Those are discussions that we're going to have in the summer. And assuming that it stays in the proposed budget, then you'll see part of the fire presentation. They're going to present, that revenue increase. So for that 3.1 million, it's made up. The big drivers are going to be that EMS transport fee. There's some fire prevention revenues that are being reworked as we speak. They're meeting with the development community currently to kind of gauge like what the appetite would be to maintain the services that we're providing with our development services department. And so those are the two big drivers of that 3.1 million. But those are adjusted revenues. Those are not like percent increases. The percent increases any percent increases are just revenues that are rising based off growth would be in the one of the 4 categories on top.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So here's a slide on property tax that I mentioned. So you can see there in the table on the right how our taxable value growth for base value, so these are existing properties, is expected to decline from 26 by about 3.5%. New values we're anticipating to grow at about 1.4%. So overall, it's negative tax growth, which is something that really hasn't really happened in San Antonio since kind of going back to like the Great Recession, which 15, 16 years ago, 2008, 9, 10. And so a couple things there. So these projections that you see here for property tax, they include our projections, and they assume losses for protests, litigation, and exemptions. Why is it down? Housing market has worsened. Houses are on the market longer than they were in the past. Then the median and the average value has kind of stabilized and gone down, I think, just a tad. There's another factor that's growing. It's not really the base, but it's in that revenue. In the 25 legislative session, there was the implementation of SB 9, which is exempts. It raised the personal property exemption from $2,500 to $125,000. So because of that, the city is foregoing about $9.2 million in revenue in 27. So that's a big driver in our reductions from 26. So you can see here, this is our history of our property tax. So FY27 anticipates about a 1.7% decline in property tax revenue. And then after that, there's no growth anticipated in 28. And then moderate growth in 29 of 0.5%, and then 2.5% and 3% respectively in those last 2 years. A couple of things that you'll see, you've heard. I know a couple of you have mentioned that you've listened to the goal setting session or the forecast, and there's been talk. We're recommending a property tax increase for FY27. I have some more information on that as we move along. But there's two parts of that. The other part, the first part that you see on this slide is. We should be able to raise more revenue without having to go back to the voters by up to 8.5%. But around 2019, 2020, that legislation was implemented where that limit was now reduced to 3.5%. So if the city were to try to raise the property tax rate where it would generate more than 3.5%, then it would go to the voters and the voters would have to approve it. So our recommendation right now is to use that 3.5% revenue growth increase that the state allows us to do so that we can maintain our operations in the general fund.
So in your explanation right now, the whole idea, moniker of affordable housing, how does that play into revenue stream? Are we getting anything off apartments?
Well, the apartment would be whoever owns it would be paying those property taxes.
Is as vigorous as what we charge residents?
Yeah, it would be the same rate. So it would be the M&O rate that's here. So I think on this previous slide, we have, you see the tax rate there is 54 cents, a little over 54 cents. About 33 cents of that is the M&O rate, the maintenance and operation rate. So that's where the 3.5% would take effect. There's also another part that it's not on this slide, but it's in other slides. We also have the opportunity to use what's called an unused increment. And what that is that going back to that 3.5% growth, we can actually go back 3 years. And if we didn't take advantage of that, we kind of, for lack of a better term, we bank it, and we can use it as part of our growth for the next year. And so there's a number for that I'll show here later in the presentation.
Yeah, because I watch and I see a lot of apartments coming up. I'm just curious to see how that churn of residents moving into the apartments, buying gasoline, buying things at HEB, sales tax, how that churn is going to contribute.
Yeah, I don't have anything specifically related to apartments, but yeah, your assumptions are correct. You know, more people coming into town living in apartments, they're going to use electricity, right? So the city gets 14% of CPS revenue, so that would drive that. Sales taxes, you know, they're doing their shopping, whether it's HEB or going to the mall or whatever, anywhere that's taxable, we would generate growth off of that as well. And then if people are moving to the city, I mean, the city's still growing, so anything else that they use, any user fees, you know, heaven forbid they have to ride an ambulance, we're gonna get a transport fee for that. They go downtown, you know, they're at the block party for the Spurs, and they decide to take a river barge ride. We're gonna get revenue from that. So just a couple of examples of how that could affect us.
Yeah, well, they're all coming to the library, so factor that in.
Yeah, maybe we put charge $2 a head and put it back in the library. No. I know we don't want to do that.
Admission to the library.
Yeah, admission to the library. Okay. This is the history of our sales tax. So you can see that FY20 was the COVID year, so that's why you see a decline there. We recovered drastically, and, you know, I don't know if we can prove it, but several theories, you know, all the federal funding that was put into the economy. Stimulus packages, pent-up demand was also a factor. So you can see how we grew the sales tax in FY21 and FY22. But then we kind of got back to normal in FY23. And you can see how we've kind of been fluctuating around that 2% that I mentioned that we're using for FY27. We were our estimate is to be about 1.7% up from last year, and then 2%, and then we gradually grow that between 2.5% to 3.5% as we go through the outer years of the forecast. Next is CPS Energy, and I mentioned before that there is a slight decline in FY27, and that's just forecasting that we're not forecasting the same level of all system sales that we're receiving this year, so we've kind of right-sized that back to what we've seen in the history. But after that, there's modest growth, and you see modest growth in FY28 and FY29. There are several projects that are going to be coming online. To your point about growth in the city, there's some, I don't want to start another conversation, but some data centers are going to come online in FY 29 or 30 and 31, and so that's going to drive more energy costs or energy revenues, and a portion of that will come to the city's general fund.
And we have the capacity to support that.
Yeah, CPS Energy actually last year bought several new generation plants, so they have capacity to do it. Now, that off-system sales, that's a good point, sir. That off-system sales I was mentioning, that'll decline just because the growth, unless they purchase more capacity, you and me and everybody else in the city will kind of take more of that capacity up, and there won't be as much available to sell in the market like they're doing today.
Yeah, so what I'm in the back of my mind with all of the data that's being shared and what we're learning, I'm trying to think of ways to protect the equities of the library system. Again, it's a great investment, and leave us alone. We're silently serving the community in a great way. Write that down.
Is the decision to add data centers to CPS, is that something that the public votes on, or is that something?
I don't believe there's a public vote, but there has been council discussion. There was actually a B session January, February timeframe. I mean, don't hold me to that, but in the earlier part of this year, there was a B session on data centers.
I don't remember there being a vote in council. Do they vote on that?
That was no, they do not vote. That was a
Just
B
like,
session, so it was just a briefing and a discussion.
Yeah. Thank you.
So for the forecast, for the expenditure side, we do make some assumptions. So for example, we assume that we're going to fully fund any initiatives added in FY26. So any new programs that were added, any new staff, those we're going to fund in the future. So we reflect funding and provide today's level of city services. We do remove any one-time expenses. So for example, in the 26 budget, there's about 1.4 million for the fire department to do a needs assessment. They only need to do that once every more than 5 years, so that's in the 26 budget, but it's out in the future. And then we add operating costs for any completed capital projects. So as as the Carver, for example, the Carver Library comes online, we're assuming some operational costs for that. I can't remember if there's any other libraries coming online, but there's some. But there's also things like the Kenwood Community Center, the Father Roman Community Center in D3. Those are capital projects that are becoming online, and so we have a mandate that we need to fund those and operate those facilities. So we put that in the projections. We fund employee compensation and benefits for civilian, police, and fire. The current forecast does not include any new improvements or changes to existing services. So like I mentioned before, just the current services are funded in these forecast numbers that you're going to see. Does not include any new, it includes 10.7 million in reductions as part of the FY27 plan. So a little bit briefly on that. So as we were doing the budget last year, the city has a policy of adopting a 2-year budget plan that's balanced. So to balance FY27 through the FY26 adopted budget, we included 10.7 million of potential reductions. They're not official. They haven't been voted. We're going to actually work with departments and the community to determine if those are going to stay or they're going to be, or if something else is going to take its place. You'll see there is a number in there for the library that we worked with the library team last year, and instead of doing that in 26, we just put it as a placeholder for 27. We actually had a meeting today. We were working with Mr. McCary earlier and going over those things, but he's gonna work with the team. We're gonna come back with some suggestions on is that still feasible, or is there something else, other programs that could possibly replace that reduction. Then finally, we have a financial policy with the city where we maintain our ending balance with a minimum of 15%. So the forecast numbers will maintain that 15%.
Is that 15% of total budget or just the?
It's of revenues.
Of revenues.
Of revenues.
Thank you.
Typically, in the past, we've hovered between 15 to 20, 21%. But to balance the budget, we have to make sure that that's 15%. So this slide right here is the forecast that we presented to the council, the mayor and council, on May the 6th during the forecast. So this does not include any type of property tax increase. It only includes maintaining the current property tax rate. So that you can see here how, I mentioned earlier, our revenues are going to decline by 0.6% in 27 and grow on an average of 2.1% in the other years. However, our expenses are projected to grow currently at about 6.3% in 27 and 3.8% in outer years. So you can see how our revenue growth is not keeping up with our expenditure growth. So that's why we have some challenges in this forecast that you can see here. So we're working on narrowing that gap in the general fund. So you can see 27, we still have a positive balance thanks to that 63.2 million that we're going to be banking from FY26. But then it grows to 130.7 million, which is a number you heard a lot during the goal setting if you tuned in. And that grows all the way to 2031 to 264 million. So we have some work to do. So this is the slide we presented to the mayor and council on Friday at the goal setting session. So on the left, you see what the requirements would be to mitigate that $130.7 million budget deficit in 28. So if we maintain the current property tax rate, we would have to cut $130.7 million over 2 years, or about $65 million a year for 27 and 28 to balance the budget for the 2-year plan, FY27 and FY28. The recommended item or the recommended path is the green part of the table you see on the right. So it includes an increase to the property tax rate. And so there's 2 factors to that I mentioned earlier. The first one that you can see is an increase to the property tax revenue using the unused increment. So if we were to raise that, that would generate about $29.1 million in FY27 and then 30.1 in 28. If we do the maximum allowed state growth to 3.5%, that would generate 24.7 in 27 and 41.9 in FY28.
Is the unused increment, is it capped at 3.5? Like, is it only the previous years, or do you bank all of the years that you do?
You do the 3 previous years. So, for example, FY24, if we didn't, let's just say we raise more revenue by 1%, that 2.5% gap
It's still
is in
there
the
for
bank.
you.
It's still there, and we can utilize it in 27.
Okay, thank you.
So if we do the recommended scenario, the green one there, it would require, instead of doing $130.7 million of cuts, it would require $15.6 million of cuts over 2 years. So that's the recommended scenario, because as you can imagine, having to cut $130 million is going to have a material impact on the services that we provide to our residents. And so that increase in the property tax, what can it pay for? So the intention would be to pay for our public safety mandates. So you can see on the slide, the police and fire collective bargaining agreements along with their benefit costs, those increases for FY27 amount to about $55.0 million. There's another $17.4 million in support services such as technology costs, fuel, equipment, and other things. And then there's $4.8 million in mandated or contractual increases that I talked briefly about at the beginning. But examples of that would be, we have a couple COPS grants that we get from the federal government. Those require a match. So those increase over the life of the grant. So that's part of it. We're opening the South Florida substation in D3 in FY27, so there's costs associated with that. And then another example would be body cameras. The increase for the police body cam contract is going up a bit in FY27. So overall, between those categories, they're increasing, public safety is increasing about $77 million. So in theory, that property tax revenue would be used to cover about 3/4 of it, 2/3 or so.
And so these are elements of what you're calling expense growth.
Yes, sir, just in public safety. There are other expense growth you can see from the other slides.
How much of that was a projection of inflationary bite?
So that second tier there, some of those are going to have inflationary costs. So, for example, fuel. I don't have to tell you guys about what's going on with fuel nowadays, right? So we have projections. We use the Department of Energy's website and metrics to determine fuel. So there's inflationary costs there. We use a consumer price index to do some of our commodity pricing, maybe some of our contractual services. For next year, it's about 2.5%. So there are some inflationary adjustments in that number.
Yeah, because and there's no bond penalties,
No.
anything like that.
No, sir.
Okay.
No. So if we did I'll go back to this real quick. So if we did the recommended scenario of using the unused increment and the state allowed growth, this is what our 5-year forecast would look like. So our revenues would increase. It would go from 0.6% to 2.6% in 27. Instead of a decline, we grow by 2.6, and it would increase the outer years from 2.1 to about 2.6. Then the expenses is with those additional reductions that I talked about, that 15.6 over 2 years, our expenditure growth would go from 6.3 to 5.8, and 3.8 would remain in the outer years. You can see there that we would have a better balance in FY27, and then we would have a balanced 2-year plan in FY28. However, there will still be challenges from FY29 to FY31 that we would still need to work on as we move forward. Now, the forecast, like I mentioned before, is not a budget. So we would be at this point next March and April looking at how we're doing on sales tax, property tax, CPS energies, what ended up going into the 27 budget, right, and what we have to fund in 28 and beyond. We'll factor those in, and we'll do this all over again next April or May.
The 3.5%, I know that it could be increased. That would go up to council vote.
Yes.
Okay, and when would that be projected to be voted on?
So that would be part of the adopted budget in September. So it'll be, unless we hear, we're going to do the trial budget on June the 17th, we're going to incorporate this scenario in there. If you tuned in Friday, I wasn't counting votes, but part of the council was against it and part of the council was kind of for it. So we'll see what kind of reaction we'll get. We may get a consensus from the council on June 17th, like, no, we're not doing any of it, which means we have to go back to that plan of cutting 130.7 million over 2 years. But the actual tax rate will be adopted in September with the adopted budget. There'll be in the proposed budget, it'll have the proposed tax rate for 27. There's also will be a couple budget hearings and property tax rate hearings as part of the process between the proposed budget and the adoption in September. They're part of our budget calendar.
Okay. And has the city, are there any annexation plans?
Not at the moment, not that I'm aware of, and nothing built into the forecast for sure.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And the revenue holdback of 15 to 20% that you mentioned, is that factored into this final deficit number, either this one or the previous one that you showed?
Yeah,
Is that
so
always accounting for
these
it?
deficits maintain our 15% reserves. Okay. So let's just say we didn't have to do that and we maintained our reserves at 10%, then we would take our reserves and it would fund those deficits.
5% of it would go.
Yeah, it would go to that.
Thank you.
Those deficits would be lowered.
I think there was another question.
Yes, ma'am.
As the tax rate goes up, when our property values go up, so in fact, with those taxes go up, if our property values rebound nicely, will they consider bringing that mill rate down?
They can. In fact, over the last 33 years, the council has reduced the tax rate 9 times. This would be if the council approves this would be the first property tax increase in 33 years. So as I was mentioning, some of our strategies to balance the budget, adjusting the property tax rate, like I mentioned, utilizing that unused increment, and or, because it's still in discussion, the state allowed revenue growth. Right now, we're planning to, in the trial budget, to incorporate both of those. We could adjust fees. Back to your question about other revenues. Some of those, I mentioned EMS transport, fire prevention fees. The Parks Environmental fee is something that we can adjust, and that's not a revenue that goes to the general fund. There's actually a Parks Environmental fund. And if you look at your CPS bill, you'll see a $2 charge that goes to that. And what that can do, if we were to raise that fee, let's just say we raise it by 25 cents a month, that would generate about $2 million in that Parks Environmental fund. And that would allow us to move $2 million from the general fund Parks and Rec budget over to that fund and help with the deficit. Like I mentioned, we'll be doing the trial budget presentation on the 18th, and you'll see what the strategies are to obtain the balanced budget for FY28. Just our next steps in the budget process. So you can see the trial budget is the next thing on June 18th. After that, we'll take the feedback that we get from council on that day, and we'll work the manager and departments, as you know, all our leadership on in the month of June and July, and working on that proposed budget, which will ultimately be presented to the mayor and council by the city manager on August the 13th. Right after that, we go into budget work sessions. We'll do community input we'll do the community input for about 2 weeks after that proposed budget. Some of you may have been involved or attended. We usually do one at every one location in every council district. A couple years ago, we incorporated a youth town hall. We'll continue to do that. Like I mentioned, there's about a dozen budget work sessions where the library will most likely be part of one. They have been in the past. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be this year. But most of our kind of our larger departments will have a budget presentation to council. We'll also do the budget hearings and the property tax hearings. That'll be part of that process. And then all of that will culminate with the adoption of the budget on September 17th. Just an update on the comprehensive budget reviews, a couple slides on what those are. So the comprehensive budget review is something we used to do in the past, kind of got away from it, but based on challenges we've seen the past couple of years, we instituted those again in FY25. The idea or the intent of the CBR is to look at the data, make it collaborative, make it sure it's systematic, data-driven. The goals are not only cost savings, but time savings and efficiencies and performance improvement that we can see. It's not necessarily about just cutting the budget, but we can identify something that we can do more efficiently, and it could lead to taking some of those resources and using them in another area where it could benefit the city or the department. This year, the Innovation and Budget Office are collaborating with 5 city departments: police, fire, the library, and municipal court, and human resources. So what they're doing and what we're doing is looking at the overall department budget and personnel growth, looking at the organizational structure, and looking at comparative cities to just see how do we measure up or benchmarking against them? How do we do the same service? What kind of resources do they have compared to us? We review the department program services. We determine what's required by city charter, state or federal law, constitution, or any kind of voter-approved referendum. And then we work with all the stakeholders. We identify programs and services for in-depth reviews. And you can see here, I won't go through all these. I'll just highlight the library ones. So there are 23 areas for deeper analysis with 13 estimated to be done this year. You see a couple for the library, which are branch staffing analysis as well as support staffing analysis. I'll pause here if anybody has a question for that. I'm going to phone a friend if you do. Kathy's going to help me on that.
So what you're describing here is what on chart or slide 21 was considered non-mandated services. What is a non-mandated service? Is that
so a non-mandated service could be these things that are not by city charter, state or federal law, or something that's voter approved. So those are mandated services. And then we also, you heard on Friday, we have priority city services. So those are city services that are not mandated. However, they've been identified as priorities by the council. So for example, pretty much the homeless department is not mandated. We don't have to provide those services. But as you know, that's a priority, not only of the council, but of the community. So we consider those priority city services. But there's other things that we just call city services that are not listed on those priorities. So there could be things in the library, and forgive me, I can look it up if I need to, but there's some services there that we're not required to provide by the charter. They're not identified as a priority by the council or the survey, but it's something that is either done. It could have been an improvement that we did years ago that we're just maintaining, and we're continuing to do those services.
In this case, these 2 items they're not repeated every year. These are like one-time items. And
Yes.
you mentioned earlier, like the police, if they're doing, or the fire department, I think, if they're doing like some type of analysis that's not repeated on a yearly basis, like it's done once every 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, so
it
we
wouldn't
have
be considered
we have
in your budgeting.
Yeah,
correct?
so we don't do every department every year. So last year we did Parks and Rec, Health, and a couple others, DHS, and there's one I'm forgetting. This year we're doing those 5, and then next year we'll identify another 4 or 5 departments to take a look at. The idea is over the next 4 to 5 years is to look at all the general fund departments in some manner, and then probably recycle and repeat, go back to Health and DHS and those others that were done last year sometime in the future.
So the items that are listed here, they are, just to restate what I understood from you, they are not required by city charter or any other, what did you say, city charter or federal law, constitution,
Yeah.
or voter approved referendum, but if there is enough correlation of the importance of the staffing analysis for the outcomes that they provide, and if there's enough support for that from the council and the mayor, you will consider that in the overall,
Yes.
just like the homeless
So
example
yeah,
you mentioned.
so the results of this comprehensive budget reviews, they'll be incorporated into the proposed budget in August. So going back to your question, looking at branch and staffing, some of those services could be mandated, but it's not to take that away. It could be, like I mentioned before, ways to do that more efficiently or better, right? So they could take some of those resources and use it to do another service that perhaps is not mandated.
Yeah, and just to understand like the context in which this is done, are you looking at all five? So you have these 5 departments, you're rotating them every year, and then are you asking for the biggest dollar amount? Because I can just imagine that a branch staffing analysis, for example, just to pick on one that's in the library,
Right.
would be just pennies compared to overtime at fire or police for that
Yeah,
in terms of size.
That's a fair point. So there is no target per department. We did put a placeholder in the FY. I mentioned we saw that 10.7. I think I mentioned the 10.7 million dollars in potential reductions.
Right.
Out of that 10.7, there's $4 million that are just called comprehensive budget review reductions. They're not. At the time we came up with that number, we didn't have the library drafted to do a
Right.
CBR this year. So it just depends on what innovation and the budget and the departments work out and suggest to the manager as part of the budget development process. So it could be 4 million, it could be more, it could be less, just depending on the results of that analysis.
There's no expectation that every department will contribute a similar amount or a similar
Not a similar
percentage.
amount. We would anticipate that they would each contribute something. But to your point, 1% of 55.8 million is a lot less than 1% of 632 million in the police department.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking. Okay, thank you.
And with that, that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any more questions that you may have.
I think we've been asking questions as
Yeah.
we go along, but I'll just confirm one more time. Okay, thank you so much
All
for the
right.
presentation. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. And we'll be watching the B sessions.
Yes, please
A
do.
sessions, all of the sessions. We're there.
And please feel free to attend all the town halls and the work sessions.
Okay, we'll continue with budget and go back to item number 5, which is a budget report for April 2026.
Good afternoon, board members. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the budget report as of the end of April. 58% of the fiscal year had elapsed, and bottom line, we are at 59% spent with encumbrances, or 56% without them. So overall, we are on track with spending. As Freddie was talking about, the 6+6 was presented to council on May 6th. And the mid-year adjustment, which aligns our adopted budget with this 6+6 estimate, was adopted by council on May 14th. So the library's mid-year adjustment lowered our adopted budget by $79,000, and this is going to be due to vacancies. Next month, you'll see that reflected in the report. This month, it's still the revised budget, the adopted budget plus carry forwards. So that pretty much completes my report, but if y'all have any questions on anything specifically, I can take them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a report from the Executive Committee, and the Executive Committee did meet on May 19th to set the agenda for tonight's meeting. Next, we have a report from the Advocacy Committee. Judy?
The Advocacy Committee did meet on May 21st, just to discuss bond initiatives and just to brainstorm about how to advocate for the bond.
Thank you. Next, a report from the Budget Committee. And Ms. Harris, sorry about that. Ms. Harris is not here today. So let me just double check and see. Can you provide an update, Kathy, on that?
The Budget Committee did meet, and it was basically going over exactly what Freddie just presented. So.
Okay, thank you. With respect to the Budget Committee and the Advocacy Committee, I would encourage the chairs, and I'll pass this message on to Ms. Harris directly as well, but since Judy is here, I do encourage the chairs of budget and advocacy to collaborate, because beyond the bond, it does sound like the homeless list services example that Mr. Martinez gave was a really great one, where there is a service that's not dictated by any charter or approved act, but it has public sentiment, has so much support that city council and the mayor are made aware of that. And I think that's a great opportunity for our advocacy to expand to that type of work, because we wouldn't want to see branch or any staffing analysis cut just because it's maybe an easy target to cut, especially in this when we have such big budget line items from our other departments there. The library is just a small one, overall as it is. So thank you for letting me share that. Next is a report from the Facilities Committee. Andrea?
So we did not meet, and I think all the updates are in the packets, but I know the team is willing to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you. Next, a report from the Naming Committee. Josie Martinez is not here, but the committee did not meet this past reporting period. And then next we have a report from the Ad Hoc Board Policy Committee, and Fernanda did have to leave, but I understand Dale will be providing an update for an agenda item that will be coming later on the agenda, item number 20. And number 12 is a report from the Ad Hoc 2027 Bond Committee. Do we have an update on that?
We did meet, and Kathy's going to give an update.
I'll keep it brief. We are recommending to the executive committee, when they set the agenda for June, to invite the director of the Capital Delivery Department, who's responsible for the bond process with council, to come and present to the board on the process. But just very high level, briefly, on May 13th, there was a Council B session regarding the status of the current bond projects for 2022, as well as for the process for the next cycle for 2027. And right now, about 66% of the current bond projects are either complete or under construction. So for us, we're in good shape relative to the progress for the city as a whole. The one key takeaway was that the timing of the next bond election has not yet been set. It's looking like a decision on that, after taking feedback from council, might occur about August timeframe, but there is work already occurring. So of course the Ad Hoc Bond Committee has met. They'll continue to meet to be ready, whether the election ends up being in May 2027 or November 2027. In general, it looks like the process will be very similar to past cycles, with the tri-chair concept as a whole, and then the various committees, public bond committees, that will have appointees from each city council member. There were some guidelines presented by Mike at that B session, so I will share those just really quickly. This is something that's also taking further city council input, but what has been proposed by staff is to prioritize projects for the 2027 bond that align with adopted city plans and priorities, that implement improvements for public health and safety, that improve the city's resiliency, and that contribute to economic viability, whether that's the economic viability of sustainability of the project as it gets delivered, but also this notion of does it involve economic development too? And then of course there'll be lots of council input on what those priorities end up being. So the Ad Hoc Bond Committee will continue to meet, in parallel with the city process.
Any questions for Kathy?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then next is a report from the Ad Hoc Interlocal Agreement Committee. And the committee met on May 19th, 2026. Discussions with the county continue. And although there's no specific update to report today regarding discussions with the county. I do want to share that I've asked Beth Graham, who is a member of the committee, to participate in meetings between the county and staff. So she'll be included and be a representative for the board on any meetings that continue going forward from today. Next, we have a report from the Friends of the San Antonio Public Library.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've attended the Friends of the Las Palmas group meeting. It was a great meeting. Mary Ann was there. It was full of good questions.
And food.
Oh. Forgot. Planning events, and they're seeing each of the members are starting to take a big part. So I was really excited about that. Pan American, they had a good turnout at their meeting, and the members are very excited. They now have a full board, and the bookshelf sales are going great. The staff they're wonderful. They're just on a new high. So that makes me feel good. We're also, another first for SAPL. We always think about the library staff, and so I decided this year I wanted to thank the volunteers at the bookseller on the same day the staff gets big recognition for the library branches. And the staff, we had a great meeting. They really enjoyed it. It was a surprise. And I don't know how it could be with me, but anyway, they were all excited that I came down and just talked to them about some of the things going on. And they really appreciated, like, the Friends do care about them. They're just not volunteers. They get to find out about us. And we do have some members at the bookseller, and they attend our meetings, so that made me feel good too. So, I sat down and wrote out each volunteer, a mere 30, thank you notes, and then we had a little small gift to give to them for what they do for us as working and volunteering their time in the bookseller. I also attended the Mission Branch Library's 15th anniversary event. Wow. You know, it was fun. All the vendors and all the children running up to other children saying, hey, you want to come over here and play with us? The parents and, you know, just encouraging that. So that was really a great time. I received an invitation from the Friends of Brook Hollow to attend their thank you dinner for their staff. They had 23 in attendance, so that was Friends and the staff coming. It was fantastic. I may be talking out of school. Secret, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So on Tuesday, June 23rd at 4 p.m., SAPL wants to host a speakeasy in the bookseller for our members, hoping to get the new members to come and learn about Friends. We've never done this, and I think it would be very good to have something where we come together. And we're going to promote our coffee, which I think is a good deal. So we're going to have some appetizers and that. I would like to encourage you all to come down, encourage the members and everything. So it will be from 4 till 7 p.m., but we also want to give the members who don't know about the bookseller a chance to look around and see if there's anything that might interest them. So if y'all can come out, that would be great. Our next board meeting will be Sunday, July 26th at 2 p.m. at Great Northwest Branch Library. I'm making a change on that board meeting because they've been going too long, and I do value everyone's time on Sunday. So they're gonna, if someone has to say something, they get 5 minutes and that's it. Yeah. a 2-hour board meeting for friends. So anyway, I am going to cut them down to 5 minutes and see how that goes. I hope it goes well. On Sunday, October 4th, from noon until 4 p.m., we're having another Friends Bookseller book sale. I hope you all can come out, join us on supporting that wonderful book sale. We're putting out some ideas about how we can do it so we don't have to turn so many people away. That's the hard part. We get such a huge turnout. So we are forming a committee, and what we're going to do is be working on the layout of how the books are going to be at Central, the tables, and I'm asking for more volunteers from the Friends. And let the staff or the volunteers at the bookstore just sit back and take it easy and watch us work. Also, I don't know if all of you get our newsletter. If you don't, I need your email because we've changed it. And I'd like to get your input on what you think about it. It's just taken a totally new look, and it's got good information in it. And so I want to proceed with that some more. So if you all don't receive it, just let me know and give me your email. We want to get you on the list. That's it. Any questions?
Would you repeat the day and time for the book sale?
It will be on Sunday, October 4th, noon until 4 p.m.
And will you have drinks at the speakeasy for teetotalers like me that don't drink alcohol?
We don't do alcohol.
Oh, so it's a completely...
It's coffee this time.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
That sounds
coffee,
even more exciting.
Coffee and water.
All right.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the great updates. And when you went to Las Palmas, did you take a picture of your wingspan behind Wemby's wingspan? Oh, it wasn't there yet during that meeting. Okay.
Believe me.
Happened with the article.
That'll have to be on the next Friends meeting then.
Yes,
Okay.
because I wouldn't miss out on something like that.
Very good. And Liz, if you don't mind staying there, because I understand that you'll be providing the report for the San Antonio Public Library Foundation, and that's the next agenda item.
Yeah, I am. Amy is on vacation, looking at beautiful sunrises and sunsets. Yes, and having fun. So she asked me if I would give the report. I apologize. I'm going to have to read some of it, but I'll do it. They've completed the foundation has completed the literacy caravan, and they're still formatting for next year's map of where we're going to be going to the schools and everything to consider for the 2026-2027 school year. If you all in your districts have a school you think you'd like for her to consider, let her know. Just email Amy and she'll drop it in, and they'll talk to the school, see if they're interested in it or not. The board is planning to identify and evaluate fundraising events for the future. So we want to become more effective as possible with both our time and our funds. So a lot of time and thought is going into this planning for future events. And I think this is great, looking out, having foresight on this. And anyway, for the fall of 2027, they're trying to work through to get everything in control on events till 2031. And I admire them for that. I really do. Before the end of the year, we should have the next 5 years of events mapped out. I know, I am so jealous, but so glad to be on this board. I hate this. Let's plan one here, one there. Can't do that. Nominating committee is working and looking at candidates for the board. There's, if any of you all have a suggestion for a board member, if you can let Amy know, that would be great. It's a great board. One, because I'm on it, and two, we have great board members. So think about that and who you know, and if they'd be interested. Amy talks to them and everything and then brings it to one of our meetings. Carver fundraising committees are going quite well. We've received a grant for $100,000 from the Nancy Smith Hurd Foundation for the teen space at Carver. I think that's very exciting. We've been asked to hang on to the Children's Space and Learn Center for the corporations who have a longer lead time and cannot give us a formal answer right now until the fall. These gifts are close to certain for what they've heard, but cannot be officially announced until they go through their process. That means the only remaining naming opportunities not spoken for, the large community room, that's still open, the outdoor space, and both parts of Phase 2 and the tech studio. Our next initiative will be more closely network with the community to bring in smaller 5-figure gifts for the African American Resource Center. So we continue to see a high degree of interest and lots of positive comments about the Carver expansion. And I myself am very excited about this on the southeast side of San Antonio.
Thank you very much for your updates.
More than welcome.
Next, we have a report on the Westfall Branch Library, and Haley will be introducing our branch manager. Thank you.
Good evening. Haley Holmes, Public Services Administrator. I have the honor of introducing the Westfall Branch Manager, Mashea McClenny. Ms. McClenny began her career at a small school in West Texas, where she worked as a school librarian and middle school teacher. She transitioned to special collections, working at the Museum of East Texas and at the Alamo, before making the leap to public libraries. She was hired as assistant manager at the Westfall Branch Library in September 2022 and was promoted to the branch manager of the Westfall Library in April of 2023. During her time at SAPL, Ms. McClenny created and continues to coordinate the system-wide SAPL Silent Book Club program. She's lived in San Antonio for 10 years and considers it home. She volunteers at both the San Antonio Zoo and the Animal Defense League. Her favorite hobbies are taking long walks or rollerblading with her husband, spending quality time with her family and friends, and of course, reading. And I have to add one more that I witnessed for myself when I came to Westfall's May the 4th program that Mashea put together. She's a big Star Wars fan, and she was dressed as the character Rey. That's dedication. So, Mashea.
I want to formally welcome you to the Westfall Branch Library. If you haven't had an opportunity to walk through our branch, I'd encourage you to do it. We're very proud of our location. This library was built in 1963. If you can believe it, it was the edge of the city at that time. This is the third oldest still operating library building in the San Antonio Public Library system. Edward Dixon Westfall and Josephine Dillon Westfall. You can see Mr. Westfall here. You can see that portrait when you're entering or exiting the building. They donated their estate to the San Antonio Public Library in 1940, and the funds from the sale of that estate went towards the building of this branch. As has been already said, my name is Mashea McClenny. I'm the branch manager of Westfall, and I've had the privilege of serving this community for 4 years. What makes any library branch truly special are the people, both staff and patrons, so I decided the best way for you to learn more about our branch is to hear directly from our wonderful team. So I have a short video, if you'll go ahead and go over here. One more time.
I'm Monty Holcomb. I'm the assistant manager at Westfall Library. And we do a lot of amazing programs here at this library, very community-based. And I do a kids chess, and I also do a all-ages chess, which we're doing right now.
My name's Heather. I am the teen librarian here at Westfall, and my favorite thing about Westfall is the teen space. One of my favorite things about the teen space is the whiteboard. It's magnetic, it's huge because my teens love to draw and they love to leave notes for each other, sometimes notes for me. And it's just a really great way to personalize the space. It lets them put their art and drawings and really kind of puts their stamp on the space so that you know that this is a teen space.
Lopez. I am the children's librarian here at Westfall Branch Library, and my job is to help children learn and know that they can learn through imagination and information, and whether that's through programming, outreach, or every day that they come into the library, I want them to develop a love of the library and a love of lifelong learning so that they can go into the community and share everything that SAPL has to offer San Antonio.
My name is Louis Medin, and I'm a training officer here at Westfall Library, part of the Learn at SAPL program. What I focus on is helping adults focus on computer training, job assistance, and resume assistance as well. I think the service that we provide here is very important. The need is there. We often have patrons coming from other parts of town to visit Westfall for these particular services.
I'm Priscilla. I work here at Westfall Library. I'm a circulation attendant. I have loved my time here, and a big part of that are the people. I'm grateful and thankful for every connection and every moment.
I am Jackie. I'm a circulation attendant here at Westfall Library, and I have had the opportunity to meet many patrons and had that great connection with them. The library has also partnered with the Senior Center Granados, and I now have the privilege of ordering their books for their book club.
Hi, my name's Natalia and I'm a circulation attendant. My favorite part of working at the library is getting to know patrons from our community and making recommendations I think they like.
Hi, my name is Lexi. I am a library assistant here at Westfall. I love working at Westfall. I love our team here. One of the things I tell my mom is that I tell her feel like I've been training my whole life for my job specifically because I'm always helping her and my grandma with things all the time. And I come to work and I'm doing the same thing with all our patrons here. But it's really nice because you could tell they really do need this help, and all the staff were always willing to jump in and help them out. And you could tell that the patrons really, really, really appreciate it.
Hi, my name's Amber. I'm a library assistant. What I love most about Westfall is getting to host many diverse programs and do displays for the library.
Hi, my name's Yesenia. I've been a library assistant at the Westfall branch for almost 2 years now. One of the first things I noticed about this branch is how close-knit the community is. All our patrons are greeted, our regular patrons are greeted by name. We've learned most of their habits, like this patron's gonna ask for a laptop, this patron doesn't want their receipt, and I'm glad to be part of this group.
Hi, I'm Scott, and I've been a library aide here since 2022. And one of the things I love the most about Westfall is the staff here. I look forward to coming to work every day, and honestly, there's not a single person here that I don't enjoy working with. And it's just been a wonderful place to spend my kind of semi-retired years. So that's what I love about Westfall.
So I just want to make a note that every patron you saw in the video is a real Westfall patron, most of whom we know by name. And we did ask them all if they were okay being filmed and okay being on in the.
So there are no paid actors.
No,
we don't have to worry about the budget.
Actors,
Okay,
no paid
no
actors.
budget.
I also want to take a moment to note that Elizabeth is one of our library aides. She was unable to participate in the video, but I want to recognize her as an important part of the team. So since you've met the staff, we'll just take a moment to talk numbers a little bit. We have 13 filled positions. We have 1 unfilled position that we're working to fill going through the vacancy review committee. And we currently have 13 weekly programs, 3 monthly programs, and many unique programs and outreaches. And as you know, we're about to start our summer programming, so that's going to increase significantly. We are going to have programming almost every single day for the next 2 months and multiple programs a day. And you can see some of the numbers of some of the growth that we've seen over the year. And then that's number of programs and program attendees. And then we just have some key performance indicators of how we are doing as far as visits and technology use and circulation. This branch has a Learn Center, which is pretty unique. And we are really needed in this community because this is an older community and they really, really take advantage of those services and the technology that we have to offer here. So do you have any questions for me or anything else you want to know about Westfall? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And last time I was here, there was a line of people waiting outside for you to open the doors. So I totally see what your staff means when they say the community really loves being here.
Yes.
There's literally waiting for the doors.
We have
to
a
open.
wonderful community. They're very supportive.
It's fantastic to see. Thank you
you
so much.
And
Thank
the
you.
drive up is really pretty.
Yes.
Drive up to the library.
Thank
Really
you.
pretty.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a staff report on the implementation of the San Antonio Public Library Strategic Plan. And Scott will be presenting.
Good evening. Wearing a couple hats tonight. Scott Williams, Marketing Manager. One of my other hats is that I have the pleasure of serving on our steering committee for the implementation of the strategic plan, along with several other colleagues that you'll hear about in a few moments. What we're going to provide today is a brief update on the framework that we've created for the implementation of our strategic plan. So I just want to mention that this will be less focused on metrics and progress and more focused on the systems and framework that we put in place in the library to implement our plan. We do look forward to coming back later on this year with an update on performance for the strategic plan. Another member of the steering committee is Kate Prazak. She's a librarian 3. She manages our information services unit and our Learn unit at the Central Library. And she is here to start off our presentation, and then I'll come back up in a few minutes. So without further ado, Kate.
Hi, I'm Kate. I started here at the library in 2012. I began as a branch manager at Cortez Library, and for several years I worked at Great Northwest Branch Library. I've been here the last few years, but I've also been an interim manager at a few locations, including Westfall, for a short period. So it's nice to be back and see everyone. And so I'm going to talk to you all about our strategic plan implementation process. So with new leadership comes fresh perspective on implementing various initiatives. In FY 2024, SAPL produced an accomplishment report that documented early progress and wins related to the 8 strategic plan goals. A steering committee for implementation was then established in summer 2025. The steering committee, the members of which are Dale McNeil, Jennifer Velasquez, Scott Williams, Jessica Zurita, and me, was established last summer. The committee was tasked with developing a framework and strategy for the ongoing implementation of our strategic plan goals. We recognized that we needed to take the 8 broad, ambitious goals and targets and Secret's emphasis on visits and circulation and break them down into something that could be functionally implemented with the complete staff. To ground ourselves, we began by asking these 3 questions. These questions provide the framework for everything else we attempt as guided by the plan. The audience and their needs should always be front of mind in our efforts to make progress on the strategic plan goals. The underlying motivation for everything we do and all efforts related to the plan is our mission statement. We are committed to changing lives of people in San Antonio and Bexar County through the transformative power of our services and resources. Who we serve can be a tricky question to answer. We serve everyone. The idea is a core principle of library service. But to define who is at the center of our service model, we completed an exercise documenting and aligning who uses the library. This diagram is the result of a discussion of our various user groups and the intersections and overlap of key groups. At the center of our diagram are members of our community where age-based services overlap. This diagram is demonstrative, not exhaustive, but it shows how important some of our most vulnerable community members are to our delivery of services. Thinking about how we serve as established by the strategic plan goals allows us to re-examine the 8 individual goals and find commonalities between them. Our existing service model is heavily represented in the strategic plan goals, but the plan provides focus to address these specific 8 issues. To promote and document our work, we needed to identify a common theme that would help advance progress on all goals. To organize our work, we focused on developing a theme just for fiscal year 2026. We aligned the 8 goals of the strategic plan with our age-targeted services and looked for commonalities between our existing groups of users, service model, and goals. It was immediately clear that the focus in FY 2026 should be outreach to align with the wider system-wide priority of increasing our presence in the community. And in some ways, each of the 8 goals align with raising visibility of the library and increasing use. The next step was to determine how we would structure the implementation of projects and initiatives to align with the goals through the lens of outreach. I will now turn the presentation over to Scott to describe how we're approaching this.
Thanks, Kate. So rather than form subcommittees around each of the goals or create more meetings on people's calendars, what we decided to do was work implementation of each of the goals through our existing senior management team members, the folks who are already functionally responsible for these areas of the library. So to provide consistency and an overarching feedback loop related to the whole plan, we needed something in place that would kind of connect the dots for us. So we created a group that we're calling the Strategic Plan Ambassadors. This is a group of cross-functional library staff that meets twice every month. They receive briefings from our senior management team and other SAPL and city staff on initiatives that advance progress toward one or more of our goals. The group members applied to be members of the ambassador group for a period of 1 year. So folks who are interested were able to apply and opt into being a part of this group. And that current year, we're about halfway through it. They're going to wrap up their work in December of 2026. To increase participation and awareness of the plan and its implementation, a new group of ambassadors will be recruited in each successive year during the implementation of the plan through 2029. So we have our strategic plan ambassadors for 2026. At the end of this year, we'll have a little bit of overlap period where the groups get to learn from one another, and then next year we'll have a new group of ambassadors that focus on a new theme. The ambassadors, like I mentioned, meet twice every month. They have in-depth conversations with members of our management team about focused topics related to the implementation of the strategic plan. Recent topics have included staff recruitment and hiring, collections development, incorporating usage data and community profiles in our library services, and library staff training. The ambassadors are also key advocates for progress toward our goals. They return back to their respective work units and they report on the discussions that we're having. They also help raise awareness, they encourage buy-in, and they keep the strategic plan front of mind for the staff groups that they represent. The ambassadors also have the unique position of seeing the strategic plan from multiple work units and considering it through the lens of their respective experiences working all across the library system. And that helps them compare and contrast our efforts, recommend alignment where it's appropriate, and identify areas where collaboration might yield better results or increase the efficiency of what we're doing. The group produces really great ideas. We have excellent conversations, and then our steering committee documents those conversations and brings those recommendations back to our admin team on a regular basis for consideration. An example of how this works in practice is we recently had a visit from Adam Zaby to talk about collections development. The group received a briefing from Adam about a lot of different elements of collections development, but as people who are deeply interested in libraries, you can imagine that the conversation turned a lot to Baker and Taylor and what we are doing after the collapse of that company to make sure that we're able to buy the materials that we need in order to provide adequate services to our community. So the insights provided by the ambassadors then get to be documented by Adam and by the steering committee and brought back to the teams that report up to Adam to incorporate into their work as they continue to advance goals toward the strategic plan. So that relates to goal number 5, which is about creating a diverse and accessible collection of books and materials. So the ambassadors right now, one of the things that they're doing in this next month is considering different ways that progress related to the strategic plan can be documented. And so once we have all of their feedback collected, recommendations will be incorporated into the reporting plan that we advance through the strategic plan to you all and to our community. The ambassadors and steering committee are looking at the best ways to provide this information in a similar fashion to the fiscal year 24 accomplishments report that you may recall that Kate mentioned earlier that documented our first year's progress. But if you would like to see progress on an ongoing basis, you can do so in the monthly director's report, which you have in front of you. Through this report, our staff identify how their new and their ongoing work aligns with our strategic priorities. So at the bottom of every narrative report in the Director's report, you can see how the staff considers the goals of our plan in every facet of what they do. So with that, that concludes our report. Excuse me, that concludes our report for today. We look forward to coming back to you before the end of the year to talk more about progress specifically on the strategic plan, and I'll open the floor for any questions you have for us.
Any questions for Scott or Kate? Okay, I don't have a question, but I'll just make a comment. I think this is fantastic. I really like the idea of the, let me use the right terminology, the strategic plan ambassadors being embedded throughout the organization. I think that's brilliant. So I'm not surprised, of course, because there's been so many brilliant things happening with the team, but I just wanted to call that out. I think that's really fantastic. And I love seeing the updates. So if there are any noteworthy updates in upcoming that happen between now and the end of the year, please, I encourage the team to bring them to us, because although of course we read through the director's report, there's just so much content in there, so it's nice to kind of celebrate some of these quick wins. So thank you both for their presentation.
I also like the ambassador idea.
I'd just like to say that it's refreshing to see a strategic plan with a plan to actually implement it rather than writing it and putting it on a shelf. So congratulations to the staff for that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. Great call out. So next we have our item number 19, which is our last item, to review and consider approval of the revised library facilities naming policy. And Dale will be delivering the presentation. And are there handouts, or are they in here, Dale?
You should have the
Yes, we do. Yep. Yep,
right,
we have them. Thank
existing
you.
policy on white paper, the draft proposed policy on cream paper, and I'll sort of talk through some of those items. So, good evening, Madam Chair, Library Director, Trustees. I think you all know me, Dale McNeil, Assistant Library Director. And I really want to start off by thanking the Policy Committee with their extremely thoughtful consideration of this policy. Naming, of course, uniquely in the city of San Antonio, is reserved to the Library Board of Trustees. For other departments, naming is done by the City Council. So I know you all and the committee take that responsibility very seriously. I think I'll just also say, since Josie Martinez is the chair of the naming committee but is not here tonight, she did call and talk with me for about 45 minutes about this policy, and we walked through every detail of it, and I was able to answer, all the questions that she had. So that's just, not trying to speak for Josie, just letting you all know that she did receive that information. And I think maybe I'll say one other thing before I really start, which is, because the Carver campaign was mentioned, it's my understanding that what the foundation has been doing is informal at this point, because you, the Board of Trustees, have not taken action to initiate a capital campaign for Carver. So they are informally gathering interest and who might be willing to, but of course, the capital campaign starts with board action. Okay. Oh, I gotta. Sorry. Oh, can you help? Because I would have to go through every slide, and I think Scott can get us there a little faster. So while Scott is doing that, I think I will just mention also that I did send you all a copy of the proposed policy. Yes. A couple times, because I know, at least for me, I get so much email that I just want to make sure nobody took any offense at that, because I certainly didn't mean it that way. I just know I get so much email that I appreciate a follow-up. And so what I'm going to do tonight, I can answer as many questions as you have, but I want to sort of start off with sort of what's different and what the committee was trying to accomplish. So the current policy was adopted by the Board of Trustees in 2017. Its primary focus at that time, the primary focus was who that something could be named for. That was the focus. It wasn't really so much on the process. In this draft, there's a lot more focus on the process. The committee did not recommend any changes to who something could be named for. That all stays the same. For the community-driven namings, which I think this is something, it's probably not unique, but it's an unusual thing that the San Antonio Public Library does to allow namings with no gift to come from the community. That has not changed except in one regard. And that one regard is if the name is to rename the entire library, instead of the one public meeting that was suggested before, there would be a minimum of 2. Obviously, the naming committee or this board could have more public meetings, but a minimum of 2. That's the single change to the community-driven policy, part of the policy.
The non-donation
Correct.
policy. Yeah.
So I just want to highlight that because it's just the only change there is to that part. Most of the changes are to the capital campaign. So I just want to kind of walk through. The committee was trying to have as much opportunity for public input as possible, and then at the same time, be able to move maybe a little faster once there is a name provided by the foundation. So I'm just going to kind of walk through what the steps of the capital campaign are and emphasize a couple points there. One is library leadership staff, in coordination with the foundation, would recommend the elements of a capital campaign that would include the spaces that could be named and perhaps always a sort of minimum amount for that naming. That would be recommended to the facilities committee. That happens in the current policy as well. The facility committee reviews that as they do now. Then, and this is a big change from the current policy, a public meeting would be held at or near the location in question. So I'm going to just use Carver as an example just because it's on all of our minds. So probably at the Denver Heights Community Center, there would be a public meeting to talk about those elements of the capital campaign. What is it? How does it work? Can just anybody have their name? Or what are the criteria? Those kind of things. And, that would be, like I say, in the neighborhood. Foundation staff would probably be there. The policy committee recommended not calling this like a public hearing. It would be an engaging community meeting, where there could be conversation, not like the public meeting of the naming committee where, one person comes and speaks for 3 minutes and the committee sits there silently. Not like that, but informing the community and engaging with them. Then, after that, the facilities committee would meet again to recommend the capital campaign. The way naming has done this in the past is they've met immediately after that public meeting. So this next meeting of the facilities committee doesn't have to take any extra time. It could happen quite quickly, including on the same day. But the policy committee, felt that if we have public input, it has to go back to the facilities committee for them to consider, because what if somebody says, please don't name that, or that should be double that amount, or they have to be able to consider the input. Then the facilities committee would recommend that to come to this board. You would take action and adopt a capital campaign. So that public meeting is what's new and quite different. The committee felt that really engaged the community in a better way than we've been able to do in the past. Then, as the campaign is going, the foundation would receive pledges that would be associated with the names in the dollar amount established by you, the Board of Trustees, or more, of course, that name would be brought to the library director. He would bring it to the executive committee, and the executive committee would determine what date of a board meeting that name would be brought to the board meeting. That is to say, it would not have to be that very next board meeting. In fact, I think we're supposing it would be at least a month later. But then the executive committee would make that determination. You'll see there at the bottom in the gray, communication plans will be implemented. So there would be outreach to the community in question. Let's again use Carver as an example. Emails would be sent to Carver community members and so on, letting them know what the item would be and which board meeting it would be at and where that board meeting was going to be held. And then the name would be considered by this board and adopted or not. And the reason we put this in this little circle is that would keep happening, for the various naming opportunities if they weren't. I'm not familiar with one where we've had every single name come all at once, so it would be over time. And the big difference here is that in the past there's been a public meeting of the naming committee kind of about the name and to hear objections to it. And what's recommended in this draft policy doesn't have that. So there's this new public meeting at the beginning, and then the name would move from executive committee to the board, the board meeting, bless you, that was recommended by the executive committee.
The portion that you're describing right now, where is that in the policy? Where is that described in the policy? Is that in 6E or?
So where that is, just give me 1 second. So let's see. So 6 talks about establishment of the capital campaign, and then 7.
6E, is it 6E that you're describing?
6E is the public meeting to establish the capital campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And then in section 7 would be the naming process. And when we get to 7G, that's where this policy is described in the policy, 7G.
7G, okay.
Mm-hmm. And then this policy, I'll just also mention, it does speak to major donor opportunities and the smaller donation opportunities like a tree or a wall or a tree or pavers or bricks or those kinds of things, which the foundation has done, but they were never mentioned in the board-approved policy before. I don't think there wasn't any real discussion about that. We really are just sort of outlining what the foundation has done in those sections, but of course I'm happy to talk about them. So those are the primary differences in the existing policy. Again, the criteria for naming remain the same, and the community-led processes it remains the same. In either case, community-led or a donation, a gift rather, for the name of the entire library, there would be those 2 public meetings. So this process that I just described here on the slide that you can see now, this is not for the name of the entire library. If it's the name of the entire library, it's not only the 1 public meeting in the 2017 policy, but rather 2 public meetings that would happen. And then I'll just note that there is an appendix to the policy so that it's clear which libraries even could be considered for renaming. And again, I especially want to thank the members of the policy committee who really thoughtfully considered the existing policy, what they wanted to recommend as a new policy, and the work they did to get this to you all today.
So for, can we ask you some questions?
Of
now as we go
course.
through? Okay. So for item number 3, location name criteria, it doesn't specify that this is for brand new facilities. So if we have a brand new facility, which section would that fall under? The name of a new branch.
So section 3, location name criteria, is for new or renaming of. If this is any library name, so any library, a new library could be named for its geographic location, for individual for at least 1 year, and so on. So that could be a new library, or if someone were suggesting renaming a library. The criteria are the same.
I think it would be, so I'm going to make some notes that I don't think they just add additional detail, and maybe Christina can work with you to
Sure.
make these updates. But for number 3, because number 4 is the entire existing library, I think for number 3, we should specify that it could be new. This includes new branches, just
Sure.
to show that the policy addresses that. And the next question that I have is under 4B. It says no later than 45 days after a name proposal has been received, the naming committee will hold 2 public meetings at the library location in question. So you'll get notified on the 1st, let's say, just make the math easy, and then the 45 days later is the 15th of the following month. So you're saying that within those 45 days, 2 public meetings will be held or will be scheduled?
Scheduled.
Okay.
Will be
So I think that should be modified instead of saying we'll hold.
Sure,
Say
that makes sense.
we'll schedule
Sure.
2
Absolutely.
public meetings.
That makes good.
It would be kind of time prohibitive to
Yeah,
have 30 days notice and then
right,
also have
exactly.
them
No,
at-
that's a good observation. And I know Sydney is also taking notes as well. And I'm assuming Adam is too, because
Okay.
he's the co-staff liaison.
Okay, perfect. And Christina's probably taking notes too. So,
Mhm.
and then another question that I had, and so maybe that update regarding the holding the meeting, the 45 days notice, and the 30 days notice. Can you just refine all of those sections and make sure that it's clear what's going to be scheduled
Right.
versus when the commitment for the
Absolutely.
meetings
So,
to occur?
so I'll just say what's meant, which I will agree with you. It doesn't exactly convey that right now. Is that the action would be taken no less than 45 days to schedule the 2 meetings, and that at least 30 days notice
Right.
would be provided of the meetings. But I agree with you. It doesn't exactly say that. And I will also say that when this has come up, whether it's a room or the whole library, the current policy says in 90 days or less. In reality, we start working on it the next day or the day after that. We don't really wait 45 days, just so everyone knows that.
Okay, and then my last question in response to the smaller gift opportunities, which are, it's in number 9, other opportunities in board-approved capital campaigns. Is that truly limited to board-approved capital campaigns, or are there, actually, I'm sorry, let me retract my question because there shouldn't be any exchange of donations unless it's approved by the board. But for the smaller gifts, there's no meeting about a smaller gift, such as a paver or a tree, like you mentioned.
Right.
However, are those mentioned as potential opportunities in the public meeting?
Yes, that's exactly one of the things. I'm really glad you asked that question, because right now the public meeting has been about the named items only, where this public meeting at the beginning would give the opportunity for the foundation with staff or staff with the foundation, whichever way you want to look at it, to talk about the entire capital campaign, which right now that has to be communicated in sort of bits and pieces, but this would give an opportunity to talk about we're doing pavers or we're having the tree like at Mission, and so that would be, there's ways at many different gift levels that aren't just necessarily naming for the public to participate.
So my last comment will just be in 6E. Following review by the Facilities Committee, a public meeting will be held. Maybe add just a few additional words to describe that public meeting will be an informational meeting.
Sure.
And specify whether there will be the opportunity for members of the public to sign up for public comment, because we have different types of meetings. Some are more like you sign up like a board meeting and you can share your views on whatever topics are on the agenda. And then others are more like we're sharing information. We don't necessarily have people sign up for it, and there's not like the 3 minutes and all that.
Sure.
So I think some clarification around how the public comments would be addressed there. So there's consistency and a clear understanding. And also it says here that details of the process will be explained and input gathered from the community. So just like a little bit around how the input will be gathered. Will it be there or will it be after the fact?
Sure.
And it says community members can respond in writing as well. So just a little bit of additional clarification.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do that.
And that's all my questions. I'm going to start to the right and see if there's any trustees on my right that have questions or clarifications. I know, Michelle, you've probably seen this since you're part of the committee.
And I wanted to actually compliment you, Dale. You did a really good job in presenting this, number one. Number two, leading the meetings. It's like herding cats sometimes, and I appreciate you doing that.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No, there's a lot of information when this
I
is being
appreciate that, but
passed,
let's
yeah.
get through the questions first.
No question.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
You're
no
good,
questions.
Andrea?
Thank you.
Thank you. And to my left,
No
I know,
questions.
Carla, you're on the committee, but just in case there's any other questions.
No.
No questions. I just wanted to say I appreciate Amy Hone was also on a meeting with us at one point and gave us a lot of feedback, especially with the donor categories, and then the transparency. She was completely on board with explaining the capital campaigns to the community, in case anybody had that question beforehand, so that there was no questions, and it wasn't just sprung on a community like, oh, hey, we're going to name this after so-and-so, this company. I think that's what was happening a lot in communities. Were getting very, surprised by some of these campaigns and weren't aware that those were opportunities. So I think the transparency up front was a big deal.
That's great. Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, this is an action item, so we should have a motion in a second before we
Oh,
proceed
thank
too
you.
far.
Thanks for that reminder. So thank you for the information, Dale, and I'll open the floor for a motion to take action, and there is a suggested verbiage on screen there as well.
I'll move to approve and adopt the library facilities naming policy as amended with those details in the ones that our chairwoman had suggested.
Okay, so we have a motion from Judy.
I'll second.
Okay, was that Beth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that reminder, Scott and Christina. So I'll just ask, I want to start first with committee members. If you have any additional specific comments that you'd like to make or clarifications. Fernanda is not here, but Carla, Andrea, Michelle, and Judy. Anything else? Okay. And then any questions or comments, Beth or Marianne, because we were kind of going down the row.
I note that this specifically excludes the central library. Is there still a separate naming policy covering the central library?
So currently, I'm trying to think of a brief way to answer that question, Beth. So as as many of you know, when under a previous director, there weren't board adopted policies. There were library administrative directives that spoke for the board. So there is one of those library administrative directives signed by June Garcia that says it's the will of the board that the Central Library not be renamed. So what the committee tried to do was incorporate that into this policy. We wouldn't throw away that LAD, but then this gives you all the opportunity should you adopt this policy, that it's in a more current policy than the one from, I think it's the 90s, that you will have again said in a small way, but nevertheless clearly, that the Central Library, like these branches that are named for individuals, is not subject to being renamed.
Considering the fact that information has come to light many years after the decease of some people, should we consider making that period for consideration longer than a year? I'm thinking specifically of Cesar Chavez this year and the fact that we had to cancel the march 3 days before it happened.
My personal thought on that is that this policy does outline how this board can remove a name. And I think, this is Romero, Cesar Chavez, which is how he preferred to say his name. I don't know how much we care at this moment, but I don't think anything in this policy would have suggested a long enough time for that.
Yeah.
So I think the crucial part here is that this policy does outline a process to remove an individual name.
In section 4E, there's just an addition. The way it reads right now is an existing library with a geographic other than the Central Library. Should that say a geographic name?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, I've got some other notes. This is what happens when you send it out with enough time to read.
That's our goal.
While you're looking for your next section, could I just wanted to make a follow-up comment to what you were just asking about Central. And I do think that hearing your question for section 5, rooms and spaces associated with library locations, I do think that because for the entire existing library, we've called out other than Central, so we're like codifying this idea that Central will never lose its name, that maybe we should clarify that rooms inside of Central are eligible for naming. Could we add that clarification here and say like maybe other areas associated with or in library buildings, including Central Library?
Sure.
So not the whole branch, but just the individual.
I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Your note takers are disappearing quickly. So, okay, Adam's there.
Section 8D, again, is just a proofreading note. It currently reads individuals, families, philanthropic organization. That should be organizations.
Yes. And actually, I had that in my notes, Beth, so I appreciate that you noticed it. But
and then in the sections where it does discuss, I think it's section 8 still. No, section 9, where it's discussing, or the sections where it's discussing removal of donor recognition. Given that in the past, namings have been sometimes controversial, where it says the library director or delegate in consultation with the library board chair, I would like to suggest that should be in consultation with the library board, just to give authority to the decision being made, rather than having it look as if the library board chair and the library director went off on their own and decided something without taking into consideration the input of the representatives of the community as the library board.
I'm certain, of course, I'm here to put what you all direct. I just want to point out that 9F, we're talking about donor recognition of these smaller gifts, like the leaves on the tree at Mission, for example, or pavers or something like that. That's the kind of thing we're talking, in panels, shelves, benches. So it's those kinds of things that we're talking about, that that really is the signage part, rather than, these aren't names. They're signs with names on them.
They're not a name. They're not naming opportunities that have been approved by the board. So the spirit of this, so, to restate, make sure that I also understand this. The spirit of FB is, you have a leaf on a tree. We'll use that example, and something has come to light that the person whose name is on there, their reputation no longer embodies the mission of the library. And so it will be brought to the director's attention, and then the director will reach out to the board chair to consult on whether it should be removed.
And then, of course, to really to your point, Beth, of course, in our current case, Justice Breed and Secret could easily say, we don't want to make this decision on our own. This is a big enough deal that we want to put this on a board agenda.
Yeah.
Nothing in this would prohibit that. But if, on the other hand, it had just become clear, let's just get this done this week, they could do that.
And then my final is also a proofreading under 10B. I think it should say the name conflicts with the ideals of the library rather than just conflicts with the ideals of the library.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's just a continuation of language from 2017 that we should have improved then. But thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to add my appreciation for the time and work and attention to detail.
Okay. Marianne, do you have any?
I don't have any questions on any of this, but once you take action and it's approved the way it is, does that mean when the changes are made, it's brought back for us to take another action? Is that what happens?
No, I think for the motion that Judy made, she included the amendments that we're making now, since they're not material to the policy, but they're more what we can call like clarifications and maybe even grammatical type of modifications. So those will be made, and then it will be considered final.
So we'll be provided a copy of the amended one,
Yes.
and we don't have to go through the whole.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Are these available for the public to look at on the library webpage?
Yes.
How is this?
So this draft is
Right, not the
except
draft, but once adopted.
Except in the board packet. But yes, all the policies adopted by you, the Board of Trustees, are available on mysapl.com. Under the board section, there's each policy that you all have adopted. But not those old ones where the director spoke for the board, which
not
we
the
haven't
ideas
done in
that
a
you
long
want.
time, right?
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you all for your comments. I have one final thing. This is just like, again, very, very minor, but in the terms and the definitions, if we could just ensure that they are all in alphabetical order, and that I think the executive committee, since it's referenced, and maybe like the average member of the public may not know how the executive committee is separate from the board, maybe that one should be defined as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to ask, I don't see any other questions, I'm going to ask Scott to lead us through a roll call vote.
Carla Gurgiolo.
Aye.
Josie Martinez is absent. Andrea Sanchez Muniz.
Aye.
Marianne Valdez Hernandez.
Aye.
Fernanda Cardenas is absent. Michelle Delvis Robledo.
Aye.
Jasprit Kaur.
I'll vote last, Scott.
Bert Quintanilla.
Yes, aye.
Beth Graham.
Aye.
Judy Cruz.
Aye.
Joanne Harris is absent. Jasprit Kaur.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And thank you, Dale, for all of your hard work. Dale and Adam for all of the hard work. I know Dale carried the brunt of it, but Adam was a diligent note taker from what I hear in all those committee meetings as well. So thank you to you and Sydney for helping support this. And thank you to the members of the committee. Fernanda's not here, so I'll have to call her to give her praise, but I do appreciate, and I know that Amy Hone also appreciates the movement on this. And just to keep visibility to the benefits of some of this hard and laborious policymaking work that you all are doing, we have a very exciting capital campaign that we're going to be kicking off soon for Carver. So just knowing that the community is already super excited about that, I hope that will melt away some of your committee hours that were logged doing this. So thank you all for the support. And that is our last agenda item. So I will entertain a motion for dismissal, for adjournment.
So move.
Sorry. Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you all for your hard work and have a good evening.